Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting. We are being webcast live this evening, so if anybody is watching, welcome to the meeting, and the webcast will be available on YouTube later. There are no fire evacuation procedures for this evening's meeting, so if the fire alarm does sound, it is for real. We'll all leave out the back, down the stairs, and out into the War Memorial, and please don't run off, because we want to count everybody in and everybody out. Mobile phones, can switch them to silent or turn them off. Microphones are in front of us as we use for full council. And that is the order to begin with. Declarations, no, absence of, apologies for absence. I've got one this evening, which is Councillor Tomlin. And then declarations of interest on the agenda. Are there any? No. Urgent matters for this evening. No urgent matters on the agenda this evening. I've got the minutes of the 10th of February, item 4. Can I sign them as a true and accurate record of the meeting, colleagues? Are you happy for me to do so? Cool. I shall do so. Number 5, leader and portfolio holder announcements. We've got a couple this evening. Could I start with Andy? You have an update on the local plan, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul. So we're going to be talking about the rights of rivers later on in this meeting, and I wanted to set the scene with some observations from the recent public consultation that we held on our draft local plan. As you'll know, the local plan contained a draft of our latest water cycle study, which is a new document that we as a Cabinet commissioned because we wanted to really understand the issues with water in Basingstoke and Deane. The study provided some independently obtained evidence that backs up many of the concerns that we as a Cabinet, that the broader chamber of 54 councillors and many local residents have been raising for a number of years, namely that our wastewater treatment works require additional investment to cope with population growth, and that there's a real risk that we won't have enough fresh water for local residents to use in their homes. So we had the consultation process and we had thousands of responses from local residents and other stakeholders. And interestingly, the water cycle study was picked up on by the Environment Agency and by Natural England. And both bodies expressed some concerns about our water situation. And our officer team are now working with both those organisations to better understand exactly what those concerns are. We don't know yet what all of that's going to mean for our borough, but I think it's really encouraging that our concerns and the concerns expressed by so many residents are now finally being listened to, and that's what I wanted to share with Cabinet this evening.
Thank you, Andy. That's really important news and really important announcement to give. Can I ask Annalie, would you like to update us on the Aquadrome, please, today?
Yes, hi. Good evening, Chair and fellow Cabinet members, and to the public at large. We're very pleased to announce the successful bid for the new Aquadrome, with Places Leisure confirmed as our preferred partner. When we came into administration, we visited leisure centres across the country to see what great modern facilities look like, and Places for Leisure stood out immediately, so we're delighted that they've won this bid. The current Aquadrome has served our borough incredibly well for decades, but in recent years it has required significant investment simply just to keep it operating, and has become increasingly inefficient, particularly in terms of energy use. This project allows us to replace it with a modern, energy-efficient leisure facility designed around what you, the residents, told us you wanted, with high-quality swimming, fitness and leisure facilities for all ages. It will also play a key role in the wider transformation of our leisure park, helping to create a vibrant destination with new attractions, activities and opportunities for residents and visitors alike. Importantly, the existing Aquadrome will remain open and serving residents until the new centre is ready, and this is a water neutral project as it replaces the existing facility. This is a major milestone for the leisure park, a major investment in the health and well-being of our residents, and a really positive step forward for Basingstoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalie. I've got one announcement this evening, which is relating to a decision that's currently out for consultation that I wanted to make everyone aware of, and it's to do with the healthcare facility that has been proposed for Whitchurch, and there's a Section 106 agreement associated with it. And the decision that's actually out for consultation is that this council agrees to accept the offer of a transfer of the healthcare facility land defined in the planning obligation. So to build on what we said last time round, to build on what's been in the press recently, it's yet another example of this authority enabling the delivery of healthcare facilities in our borough, and in this case in particular for Whitchurch. And we're working alongside the Integrated Care Board and the Town Council and the local councillors to ensure that they have an important facility retained, but also hopefully grown in Whitchurch to meet their need. So that's a decision that's out for consultation at the moment, and of course will come through the normal processes. So that is, as far as I know, all the agenda item number 5 this evening. We've got the main items on the agenda. So if I turn to item 6 and start with the Q3 Capital Monitoring Report, item 6. Gavin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Q3 reports are possibly the least interesting from a financials perspective, because last month we all met and set the budgets for the future year. So obviously we've dealt with this information previously. The capital programme indicates that we have underspent by £5 million. This relates to delays in things that we're hoping to do. There is within that £400,000 worth of savings, but essentially it's where we're reliant on suppliers, other agencies, and they're not always able to operate on the timescales that we originally predicted. So most of those schemes will go into next year's, were included in the last budget last month. So this report is for noting, because there's no variances or changes. It's just to highlight where we are.
Thank you, colleagues. Any comments? The recommendation is on page 12. It's at the top of the page. There are 6 bullet points. Don't propose to go through them, but just to say, Cabinet, are you content to make the recommendation that's set out in the paper on page 12?
Agreed.
Is that agreed? Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Q3 Revenue Monitoring Report.
Same again. So actually the forecasting and budget have been relatively accurate throughout the year. Generally speaking, there are 1 or 2 areas where costs have been slightly higher than expected, but they've been dealt with already in terms of the new budget that we put forward for next year and accounted for. We do have a £2.4 million more than we were expecting at this point, but they relate to 2 single matters. One is the supplier or producer packaging responsibility, which means that we get funded for that, and the original forecast for that was much lower than it actually turned out to be. However, the government have also said that they're not going to give any additional revenue support for collecting food waste, so the two will balance each other out. And the other item is that a lease was surrendered on a large building in Basingstoke, and there was a contribution made towards the decommissioning of that building. So there's £1.1 million in there, which is already fairly much allocated to doing that decommissioning work. So it's all good, and obviously now being superseded by the budget that was approved by Council last month.
Thank you, Gavin. Colleagues, again, the recommendation is set out on page 23. Does anybody have any comments to the paper itself before I move to that? No? The recommendation is set out on page 23. It's 4 bullet points. Again, can I ask colleagues, are we happy to agree the recommendation as set out on the paper? Agreed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item 8, is neighbourhood planning, and it's the grant scheme for neighbourhood planning. And Andy, would you like to introduce the paper?
Thank you very much. So I'm going to begin with a question. Does the government support neighbourhood planning? And it's an interesting question because the proposed changes to the National Planning Policy Framework, the new Planning and Infrastructure Act, and the removal of government grants for neighbourhood plan making all seem to point in one direction, to a planning system that's becoming increasingly centralised and top-down. Here at Basingstoke and Dean, we remain enthusiastic supporters of local democracy, the decentralisation of decision-making and localism, and neighbourhood plans are perhaps the most visible expression of all of these good things, which is why we want to continue to support them. We want to continue to support them by meeting with our town and parish councils to discuss their planning concerns with them face to face. We want to continue to support them by providing officer time and expertise. And we want to continue to support them by offering financial assistance for the time-consuming and costly process of producing a neighbourhood plan. And that's what tonight's paper is all about. The government has removed the grant funding that our town and parish councils rely on to develop their neighbourhood plans. This funding pays for expert advice and independent research, all vitally important if residents who are not planners, by and large, want to create a compliant neighbourhood plan. We want to replace that funding from our own account, as outlined in the paper. So this proposal is based on the strong belief that we should be supporting our town and parish councils in determining the future of planning in their areas. and I hope that you'll join me in supporting this particular proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Colleagues, anybody else to make any contribution? I'm just conscious of what me and Andy have been doing recently, going around the borough, talking to parish councils and engaging with many communities in many village halls and many communities for the past almost since we took over and being responsible for the administration. It's been a constant part of our work. And the overriding voice has been about localism, and I don't think this administration could be any stronger in our support for what we consider localism. And that's why this decision is so important. I just think that the current NPPF proposals are not anything to do with localism. If it is anything, it is centralising power, it is top-down diktat, and the views of our residents are so important to us that this fund is going to be really, really important to enabling them to express themselves through neighbourhood planning, and we see neighbourhood planning as being really important. So I'm really pleased to see the decision come forward, and this be a proposal of this administration to put this money aside to enable these neighbourhood plans to happen in our parish communities. So colleagues, the recommendation is set out on page 38. If nobody has any other contribution to make, I'm going to say page 38, recommendation 1, 2 and 3. Are you happy to support the paper? Agreed? Excellent. The next paper this evening is item 9, and this is local nature reserves and a review of the declaration of the priority list. This is really important. Our colleague, Councillor Tomlin, is not here this evening, so I'm going to read the introduction to his paper. In approving this paper tonight would see us start a 18-month journey to make Old Down the borough's newest local nature reserve. We made that commitment. We said it very clearly in full council. We have investigated the implications and what we need to do, and we're now very clear that in taking this decision, Old Down will rise to the top of the list because of its very fact, because of what it is, because of its importance to the community, but also to nature and our ecology in the borough. And it begins the delivery of the promise we made. Now, our rangers, the Old Down Wildlife Group and Natural Basingstoke already do amazing work to keep the green space vibrant, diverse and thriving, and we need to recognise that and welcome that. Granting it local nature reserve status would allow that to grow. It will continue to be a success that we hope it is, and that the stronger safeguards that we'll put in place because of it being declared a nature reserve for wildlife and more opportunities for residents to enjoy it on their doorstep and respect it is important. So let's be clear. Old Down would remain open and accessible for walkers and dog owners responsibly, for runners and cyclists and everyone. But there are now 11 local nature reserves in the borough because we designated Little Penwood last time at our last cabinet meeting. And so this list then takes it on. Now that was an ancient woodland in the Highclere area that we gave its status to just last month, clearly showing our commitment as an administration. Tonight, we're going to keep up the momentum if we make this decision, because there is a whole list of nature reserves that we wish to create across our borough, primarily focused on number 1 to start with, which is Old Down. So by keeping up that momentum, we will see Old Down brought forward over the next 18 months. It is a journey to go on. There is a process to go through, and our communities expect that we go through it properly. But it gives us a clear point that we are delivering on our promise. So colleagues, if I could ask you to turn to the paper, just so I've told, just we've looked at it, and Keith, the recommendation is set out on the paper, and I would ask, are there any comments to the recommendation? Gavin, please.
Yeah, I just want to say how much I support this. We've mentioned those horrible letters MPPF a few many times tonight already. Yeah. But what's clear is that our ability to protect sites, enhance biodiversity and wildlife during the local planning process is going to be slightly weakened. These are really important pockets of paradise, and I think particularly with Old Down being in an urban area that's ever extending down to the southwest, it's more important than ever to have that bit of, say, pocket of paradise for both wildlife and people. So really pleased to list. If Chris was here, he would accept the 18 months because that's the process, but he'd also look at the rest of the list and say, can it start sooner? And I would certainly endorse and promise Chris that we'll back him all the way, that anything we can do within our current resources to accelerate this programme is vitally important, because it does protect these sites for generations to come. Long after we've gone, they will still be there. So I think it's a fantastic update. I'm glad to see Old Down after years of not being on the list, now on the list, but hope we can progress through the rest of that list as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Gavin. Only.
I'd just like to say it's not a given that it was and is, and it is not a given that this is what we've agreed. This is a decision that our administration has taken, and I'm very proud of what we've decided, and I'm very excited about what we've decided to support.
That's good. Anybody else? I think after 17 years of waiting for a decision, this is a good decision to make.
Yeah.
The recommendation is on page 48. It's set out in 2 bullet points. So to revise criteria, to approve the revised criteria, that obviously reflects the assessment now, and that was important that the assessment was done properly, which it has been, which leads to Old Down being at number 1 on the list. And it is not that the others have fallen off the list. I want to be absolutely clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 all in on the list. They are all important and they will all be part of a process. But just to say, we're starting with Old Down. And then item 2, to approve the priority list for declaration as set out in the report, and that these sites be declared in this order as part of the council's work programme. So that's what we're agreeing. Do we agree?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much, colleagues. Right. Back to the agenda. We move on to item 10, which is the declaration of the rights of rivers. I've asked Kate to come down to the speaker bit. I'm just going to introduce the paper. And again, this is Chris's paper, but I'll introduce it for him in his absence this evening. This paper asks us to adopt a declaration to recognise and support formal rights for rivers across Basingstoke and Deane. It would strengthen our commitment to protect the borough's rivers and streams, particularly the River Loddon and the River Test, our 2 globally rare chalk streams which support wildlife, communities, and actually are a key part of our identity in North Hampshire. The declaration sets out 6 principles for our rivers: that they would flow freely, thrive as ecosystems, remain free from pollution, replenish and be replenished, recover and regenerate, and sustain native biodiversity. If adopted, the Council would consider these principles as far as it can in its decisions and policies, that it could open and could include on topics from planning to land use and through water management and nature recovery. It would build on the work we already do to maintain and improve our local rivers, from surveying river flies and indicators of their health to supporting partners like the South East Rivers Trust as it tracks sewage spills and tests of water quality, something we might come back to in a few moments. And it would strengthen our voice in urging regional and national bodies, such as the Environment Agency, to give these vital habitats the protection and the attention they need. So by taking this decision tonight, we're going to shine a light on these irreplaceable habitats, reaffirm our pledge to go as far as we can as a district council to protect our waterways that cut across the 245 square miles of North Hampshire that we are a custodian of. Kate, would you like to speak? Please do.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say excellent news on neighbourhood planning and the LNRs. That's great work already this evening. So to the Declaration of Rights of Rivers, it has taken significant effort to reach this milestone today, and I want to begin by thanking those who have helped bring us here. My thanks go to the Cabinet Member for Climate and Ecological Emergency, Councillor Tomlin, to Councillor Konecki, to Councillor Conquest, and to the officer team, especially Fiona, whose calm determination and focus on the can-do has kept us all moving forward. This work has involved extensive collaboration with external partners, the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, our catchment partnerships, Natural Basingstoke, the Environmental Law Foundation, and many others who've contributed insight, challenged our thinking, and helped refine what is legally and practically possible. What you have before you today is our collective best effort. If anyone still questions why this level of focus on our chalk streams is needed, recent sewage overflow statistics, readily visible on sewagemap.co.uk, makes the case starkly. And the Channel 4 programme, Dirty Business, lays bare the wider national failures in river management. Our rivers are under pressure, and the need for action could not be clearer. But this borough is already beginning to do more. Through our catchment partnerships, we have supported citizen science, empowering residents and experts to understand and protect the health of our waterways. I'm also looking forward to significant landscape-scale restoration work at the headwaters of the River Loddon, land that we are fortunate to have in borough ownership. At Saundersfield, the technical source of the River Loddon and a rare winterbourne landscape, we're pursuing a conservation covenant. This will secure a 30-year restoration programme for an area that has become highly degraded, giving it the protection and time needed to recover. Eastrop Park represents one of our most exciting opportunities. At present, the Lower Brook and Loddon run largely unseen in pipes beneath the park. Deculverting these rivers and allowing them to reclaim their natural valley could deliver ecological restoration of regional significance. It would not only revitalise biodiversity, but also transform the park, improving residents' enjoyment and supporting health and well-being. Importantly, this direction of travel has strong backing from the Environment Agency, the Loddon Catchment Partnership and resident groups such as Natural Basingstoke. These are choices about the kind of borough we want to shape. We have the partners and momentum to make them count. I very much hope Cabinet will adopt the Declaration of Rights of Rivers presented in this paper. It is a meaningful and necessary step towards improving the condition of our chalk streams and the rivers that define our landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Colleagues, would anyone like to contribute to the debate? Andy?
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you very much, Kate. So I had the privilege of being part of the group that helped write and refine this declaration, along with Kate, with Chris Tomlin and with David Conquest, as well as the brilliant officer team that have supported us. And on the one hand, you might think, well, it's been a huge amount of work with a large group of people to write a document that takes up no more than a page and a half on our screens. And you'd be right to question it, but I think it demonstrates just the degree of ambition that we've had. So we've pushed this as hard as we can. We've made it as ambitious as we can within the legal constraints that we face. And I think that's absolutely important. It's a real testament to everybody involved. I would pick up as well just the point around local plan making. We've made reference a number of times already this evening to the new National Planning Policy Framework that is under consultation at the moment by the government. In some areas that's going to help us. It does have specific criteria around the protection of chalk streams. In other areas it appears as though it might not help our efforts to protect our waterways. So we're still going through that with our planning officer team, but you have my assurance, in line with this declaration that we will make our local plan policies as ambitious as they can be whilst remaining compliant with the National Planning Policy Framework, however that finally emerges in the summer. So just a huge thank you to everybody involved. It's an incredible achievement, and I hope it has the desired effect and makes a difference to our borough, not just now, but well into the future.
Yeah, well said, Andy. Annalie?
Just a thank you to all of you, and an incredible job. You've done an amazing job. And again, I want to say it's not a given that this council is where it is today. I have to say that for many years, it's been a bit like pushing water up a hill. It didn't work, and it wasn't received, and it wasn't supported. So it's extremely exciting to be part of an administration that is looking at this subject in a completely different light. And fantastic work from all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Annalie. Anybody else? I think it just stands in contrast. I mean, I was conscious of what you were saying, Kate. Andy and I wrote on behalf of Cabinet in terms of the perspective we have on what's been going on in our rivers to Thames Water and to Southern Water. We made those letters public, as you would expect us to. Interestingly, we've actually not had the courtesy of a reply from either of them. They decided to put a press release out to the press instead, trying to take credit for the infrastructure that we haven't seen, which was beyond surreal. And it was a fascinating figure I learnt today. 639 hours. So the first 3 months of this year, Thames have dumped raw sewage into the Loddon from Basingstoke and the Sherfield and Loddon sewage treatment works for 639 hours. That is disgusting, and they need to be held accountable for it. And we have asked to meet with the Chief Executive of Thames Water. He has thus far refused to meet with us. So I'll make the challenge again publicly. If you are anything like an accountable Chief Executive, then you would agree to meet with us to have a conversation about what your company is doing to our rivers. And we have a right to have that conversation with you as the representatives of Basingstoke and Dean. And I think you need to be accountable to the people of Basingstoke and Dean for what you're doing. And that's really important. It's a sensible conversation to have because we want to understand why and we want to hear what you have to say. This motion, this led to this, was really important. That kicked it off in full council. huge amount of work being done behind the scenes by our officer team, and thank you for doing that. There's a huge amount of work that's been done. It's the right decision to make. What we do with it now is important. So the recommendation is set out on page 66 in 2 bullet points, colleagues. If there's nobody else who wishes to make a contribution, can we say, do you agree with the recommendation? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Okay, colleagues. Going to the last item on the agenda this evening, I have item 11, which is the Manydown Governance Report. Honoury, would you introduce the paper?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report provides an update on governance matters related to Manydown garden communities and the role of the company in enabling the delivery of development on Manydown North with the Manydown Development Vehicle, and this includes the approval of the 2026 MGC business plan and budget. Members will also be aware, I hope, that at the end of January we had new CGI images released which propose the gateway to the Manydown development in Basingstoke, and these designs illustrated a landscaped entrance incorporating tree planting, wildflower areas, walking and cycling routes, and a central pond reflecting the character of the Hampshire landscape. We are very excited with where we're heading on this project, which is infrastructure first led, and that is absolutely of paramount importance to this administration. We're delighted with the work that has commenced and is in progress at Roman Road. This marks another important step in the development of Manydown community, and there is some pivotal work which is taking place in relation to key infrastructure for the park too. So that's just a backdrop of what's going on, but if we could agree to the recommendations, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Honoury. Colleagues, any comments? Okay, the recommendation is set out on page 79 of our papers, is to approve the 2 papers attached to this report, which is the business plan and the budget. Are we agreed? Agreed those? Thank you, colleagues. And that is the agenda this evening. Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.